Born from the real-world needs of Resolve Marine, the Resolve Maritime Academy offers unmatched training for maritime or marine, firefighting, safety, and resource management. Our courses are taught by active professionals, providing hands-on experience that goes beyond industry standards. Whether you need STCW, USCG, or MCA certification, Resolve Academy will prepare you to mitigate emergencies, saving property and lives. Training as real as it gets, with real-world scenarios and live-action simulations. Push your limits, bring out your inner hero, and become an indispensable member of your team. Resolve Maritime Academy, where real-world training meets real-life expertise.
Hey everybody, Rick Thomas, host of Yachting International Radio's Yachting USA podcast, and I am delighted to be here tonight with three really good friends with Resolve Academy. I've got Chauncey Naylor immediately to my left. We've got Lana Farrell, who is the director of the Academy, and of course, Will Williamson. And three of these fine young people are putting together a really awesome program here. We're going to talk about that today. So welcome, and let's dig in. Let's have some fun with this. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So, Lana, this is a little bit of a family thing. I interviewed your dad not so long ago, and a lot of people that follow my show will remember that interview I had with Joe. Remarkable man, and then here you are, and you've kind of taken some cool ideas and running with this academy program. How'd this begin? What happened? How'd you do this?
Yeah, not me. This was something that was born right after me. So what we found after Open 90 happened. So after Exxon Valdez, Resolve Marine found they were a responder now to emergencies. They were on the call sheet. If a vessel had a problem, they were being called. So realizing that we needed our own responders ready to respond, we found the way to do that was to create our own training academy. And so actually Chauncey was onboarded way early on,
1993, actually.
93. So really we had some responses, and Chauncey and my dad met, and I believe my dad reached out to Chauncey and said, hey, how do we get everyone up to speed on a pretty consistent basis? And Chauncey said, why don't you build your own facility? More or less, that story.
Yeah, kind of like your dad's idea, really.
So, I think it was a group think, but yeah, we like to do our own initiatives. So we ended up creating a training facility.
Cool. So you go back to 93. The academy, when did it actually formally open doors and start inviting people to come in?
Yeah, well, the way, as Lana said, the way Joe and I met was that he attended a couple of ship fires with his team, and he wanted somebody to come in and give the team a little back. They were aces at salvage.
Yeah.
They knew the salvage part of it, but he said, I want to teach my guys what to do prior to the arrival of a firefighting contractor so that we don't get somebody hurt, or we can actually do good and hold things steady.
Mitigate the situation best you can before,
Not even realizing that he would someday be in the fire business. So he would gather up a bunch of salvage guys, salvage masters and divers, and we'd sit in a room with the expectation that we'd be in that room for several days talking about awareness in firefighting.
Right.
And by noon, everybody's pager's gone off and they disappear. They're out working. So that went on for literally 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I finally told Joe that, look, I can't take your money to sit here and have a conversation. You're a really cool guy, but I'm not going to ask you to pay me to sit here with you because these guys are all busy. You're busy. Let's do something different. And I invited him to come down to a program we had down in Miami, at Miami-Dade Community College. And he came down there and he looked and he said, this isn't really that impressive. The program is good, but your facility is not that impressive. It doesn't look like a ship.
Right.
It looks like a burn building. So maybe we could do something like that in Port Everglades where our business resides. I said, that would be great. And long story short, I worked for the fire department back then in Port Everglades. My fire chief was really progressive. He had the ear of everyone in the seaport. Back then it was an autonomous seaport.
Right.
And we got together and we leased a piece of property for $1 for 10 years. And
Pretty good lease rate.
It was a great lease rate. We started with 15 intermodal containers.
Yeah.
We built a firefighting simulator, not thinking about next week, let alone 25 years later, and it was still standing, but it was rough.
Yeah.
So then Joe invited me to come down and take a look and see about kind of reinventing, rebuilding. And in 2019, I came back after being gone for 25 years working for an offshore company. So,
Right. Well, they say you can check out anytime you want, but you can't always leave.
that's true. You can never leave.
Yeah, both you guys took me through that facility a couple months ago. That was really profound. I mean, you guys had been doing some fire training earlier in the day. I still remember walking through those steel doors, and it was like, whoa, it's still 140 degrees in here, and you can see where things have been going on, and the ladder work, and you had flood control, damage control elements in there, and I thought that was really cool. The Riscony hatch and door that was on the top side there was kind of fun.
Yeah. One of Joe's favorite projects.
Yeah, I dove that wreck. That's a cool wreck. Super neat. So, that facility, I think most people that know Resolve Academy know of the firefighting piece of it in the port. And that is impressive.
We're pleased to be that, but we're trying to get past that. And I think where you're going is good.
Well, here we are. We're off of Sunrise Boulevard, Yacht Chandler's building.
Yep.
Huge facility here. You've got a indoor deep pool, large. You've got these classrooms. You've got a lot of facility here to attract people who want to come in, get their STCW, and start their path into the maritime world. I guess I should ask the question, how do you attract them in? What are you looking for? What is your candidate?
So I think initially, I think the early 2000s, we actually had a spectrum or a large scale offering of courses. We had engine room simulation, bridge simulator, something beautiful that had never been seen before. And the market took a little bit of a hit, the training market did, and so did we. So we kind of backed off for a little bit, and so now we're really revamping that back up. And so, our clientele kind of moved more into almost like a commercial industrial sector, just with the mentality towards fire. So we train port fire departments and responders and so forth. Mm-hmm. We're starting to open up that branch again into the yachting community outside of the mariners, the commercial mariners, because the need is there, and we love what we do. So offering this type of training across the whole industry versus, some of these special sectors is really our future. And I don't know if you want to talk to that on the marine section of things.
Yeah, well, my training background, especially in this industry, goes back a decade. So I've been fortunate enough to work at a handful of the training schools here in the Fort Lauderdale area. And, as we all know, the super yacht community is probably one of the larger footprints here in Fort Lauderdale. It's the largest. It's the super yacht.
It's yachting capital of the world.
That's right.
It truly is.
So it makes sense for our target market to really kind of get a footprint in that, on top of the cruise ship industry and our first responders. So, and that's such a unique industry. So when you're talking about marketing and targeting the yachting industry, there's the social media aspects of it, and there's the, your paper, your magazine, podcasts aspect of it. But really what gets the people in the seats is that face-to-face connections.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've been really trying hard to do is, and we're pretty good at it, is getting out to these different networking events, getting out to these different, gatherings that the yachties are at, and showing the flag. Mm-hmm. Lana's been to quite a few. Chauncey's been to quite a few. I try to get to as many as I can. One of our administrative assistants, she comes to us with a good background in this industry, and so she gets out to these networking events. We're heavily involved with the boat shows, with FLIBS and West Palm. We co-sponsor events.
Yeah.
And building that human connection with the industry and the people in the industry, I think that goes a long way with getting people in the building.
Well, I think you guys are onto something. I started in the commercial industry, as I think you guys know, and then evolved into the yachting industry. one of the things that I really enjoyed when I got to know Resolve over the last many months was to see that crossover between commercial cruise and yachting. And then when you start paying attention to some of the things that do happen, there's a whole conversation that's ongoing about fire on these boats. And when fires start on these boats, it never ends well. Almost rarely does it end well. So you've got that whole lithium battery conversation that needs to come into it. You've got this skill set that you need to stay on top of. I remember while I was running a yacht management company, I was on one of our boats last year, a 50-meter Heason, and we called a fire drill, and it was fun watching the kids, start pulling out the kit and getting the hoses laid out and start putting all this together. But one of the things I'm observing while they're doing it is while the crew is pretty proficient in helping the other crew dress up and getting their protection suits on and hoods and all of that, they're pulling stuff out that's got mold and mildew on it. They're finding corrosion on hose fittings. They're, they got halfway into one of the suits and it's like, oh, we can't use this. Same thing with the immersion suit. I see one in the corner back here, and we had a couple of crew jump into immersion suits as simulated overboard kind of thing, and one of the immersion suits was damaged, and it wouldn't have saved a life. And so it's one thing to say you've got a program, it's another thing to perfect it and make it work. And I think that's where the yachting industry can do better. Right. And that's maybe where organizations like yours can come in and help kind of validate the importance of this training, how this training really does make a difference at the end of the day.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because early on in my training experience here in Fort Lauderdale at one of the early schools I taught at, we were on board doing drills, much like you're talking about. And, there were several discrepancies that came up. The organization, the emergency response organization on board just was kind of all over the road. Midway through the drill, the crew was just running around. No one really had any kind of operational control of the emergency. And one thing that makes us very unique is, there's schools that will come in and they'll teach the class to the curriculum standard.
Yep.
And then they give the certificate and the student is gone. We pride ourselves on two things. A, we want it to be as real as it gets. We follow the curriculum standards to the T and more. So beyond the curriculum standards, we talk to them about preventative maintenance of their gear. We talk to them about recommendations of how they can organize the crew and organize an emergency response. Some of our advanced classes, we get to the senior levels of leadership. We stress the importance of drills and how we'll give them a snapshot of what and the foundation of what they need, but it's up to them to take that on their boat and run drills effectively. And I think we really all of our instructors are either prior military, prior paramilitary, men and women that have done this their entire life, and they are attention to detail oriented. They are passionate about it, and that resonates in the classroom. And
yeah, it would.
I've got students now that, I had 10 years ago that were brand new SDCW, and now they're either running boats or they're chief stews or chief engineers. And they still remember some of the things that we taught in our time of teaching them. So it's important for them to take that and then have it translate on the boat.
Right, right. No, I can imagine so. And again, I speaking to the yachting side of the equation, crew is still fundamentally one of the biggest challenges the yachting industry has.
Yeah, that's right.
There is not enough well-trained crew. Of course, you've got, as an American organization and working out of Fort Lauderdale in the United States, there's a strong conversation about how American crew can even find jobs on some of these boats because of foreign flag and some of the Jones Act things. And so some of the American crew are a little bit at a disadvantage.
That's right.
So I would imagine coming through a program like this, while it doesn't solve all those problems of nationality, the attention to detail and the quality of training resonates and would hopefully be helpful. But that's something I think as an organizational program to be addressed is, finding the right mix of crew, getting them pointing in directions where they can create a career.
I agree. Yeah, and we like to build, that was the other thing that I was going to say, is we like to build that relationship from day one. I'll tell the STCW, we'll get all their personal contact information. We'll give out our personal contact information. We say, look, we want to stay with you through your entire career, and we want to build a relationship with you. We don't want to give you your certificate never to see you again.
Right,
right. We want you in follow-on classes upon follow-on classes, and I want to see you 10 years from now when you're running your own boat or you're running your own stew team or engineering team.
That is success, isn't it? When you can
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting to see that. We've come around now to the point where the revalidation process, we're starting to see people that started here or revaled here 5 years ago, and we're starting to see it come back through. And it's a good feeling because you do hear those stories of success, and that's what we're here for. We're not really here to teach people how to put fire gear on and fight a fire. What we're here to do is teach them how to prevent those fires from happening and catch them when they're small and fighting that fire in your work clothes to the point of extinction.
Right.
And not have to worry about the result of going to put that gear on.
Yeah, and that is prevention is so much part of that, and preparation, of course, as well. And then you look at things like recently happened in Germany at the Lursen facility where they had a fire that arguably, I think it's been established, that began on board the vessel. It was only a couple weeks away from delivery, and took out the vessel and the shed, and was a major business disruption. And that's where, ideally, if you had watch people and you had better training, you might be able to prevent tragedies like that from happening.
Yeah.
Very fortunate nobody was significantly injured or killed in that fire, because it was a pretty significant fire.
Well, the takeaways, so we really are focused on our students and their takeaways, right? And we read every single feedback, every comment, and oftentimes, we're reading things that I've learned so much for my daily life, like huge takeaway type of responses. And that's across the board for the whole type of program, from the first aid and so forth, for the SDCW, for fire, it's the same thing. It's the students really appreciate what type of training is provided, and it's awesome, and we love seeing that, but we also like hearing things that we can fix, and we do it. It's phenomenal. This team is just a really responsive team. I'm so happy to be working with these guys and the
These
rest of the
great guys.
team. It's a fantastic team.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the yachting industry, but did you also support like the cruise ship industry?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We currently have a pretty comprehensive program with the Royal Caribbean Group,
Right.
which includes Celebrity and TUI, and there's several other, what do we call
Lines.
that? Several cruise lines that fall under the Royal flag. And they're really progressive when it comes to wanting to know. They've got ships coming out that are powered by LNG,
Right.
liquefied natural gas.
Right. Yep.
Different animal. It's a big shakeup in the industry, but they're finding out it's pretty docile when it comes to leaks and fires, and pretty manageable, plus the fact that it's got a great history, a great safety history.
Right.
So it's a real big step forward. But what kind of sets us apart, as Will was talking about earlier, is our background is in our discipline, whether it's fire or marine, but we also have the wonderful capability of having an entire salvage company behind us that's out there today and every day around the world, collecting the latest data, collecting the latest techniques, dividing up and conquering all these different obstacles in the business, and they're creating methodologies that they bring home to us.
It's a trickle-down effect.
And, and we get firsthand knowledge of new stuff.
Right.
So we're constantly updating, upgrading our programs, not just for the STCW crowd, but for the advanced programs and the custom programs. And that's another thing that I think that sets us apart, is that we've got the ability to do custom programming for ships, crews, for fire departments.
Right.
So the academy is pretty diversified when it comes to, we always say, let the donut makers make donuts.
Yeah.
We don't try to be everything to everybody, but we do specialize in the marine emergency response category, right? So everything from teaching stews how to manage a fire extinguisher, or maybe using a fire blanket, something that's going to stay clean in the galley and not spend a week cleaning up. So not getting surprised by a fire that's contained, not being upset about it, just knowing that it's going to happen and expect it and know how to react.
Planned reaction to
That's
that.
right. You know,
Yeah.
Don't be the first one to panic. Be the first one to
solve the
act
problem.
responsibly.
Might be a good idea to occasionally check the dryer lint too. And,
Amen. You know, it's still
Yeah.
one of the leading causes.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, and the other, it was occurring to me too, is I was getting ready for this and thinking about the potential challenges that we as an industry face. There's a big move right now to electric boat. And, you know, we talk about the lithium ion batteries that you see in all the toys, but this is different now. These are different types of batteries, but they're basically integrated, built into the keel, built into the hull of the vessel, tons of integrated batteries, electrical drive systems, great technology, but that what's not been, I think, really time tested is what happens when you get a fire on board one of these boats. What's that look like? How do you fight it? How do you deal with it? How do you prevent it? And that might be, or it probably is, something you guys are paying attention to. And
Yeah,
you know,
it is definitely the flavor of the month, right?
Right.
Everyone's looking for the easy button when it comes to lithium battery, and it's a thermal runaway. When it comes to combustible metal, is something that happens that we, to date, don't have anything to stop it unless it's an individual metal, like lithium. If a lithium battery pack was only lithium, we've got Lithex. It's been made for years. The problem is Lithex works on lithium, but it doesn't work on all the other constituents in that battery, like cobalt and magnesium,
And
some of the
nickel,
other,
right.
and the nickel. That's right. So a lithium-ion battery is not just lithium. So therefore, once thermal runaway begins, no one's got that easy button.
right.
The only method we have that works to date is to suppress. We can control and protect exposures. So there's blankets out there, you know, on the street, they're using blankets to cover car fires. And all that does is contain the molten metal from shooting out and affecting something in its area.
That's right.
Right? That's the best step forward so far. Yachts have come through, and we've talked to yacht captains, engineers. Well, we bought a vault, and we don't charge batteries on the boat. We charge them on the beach. We put them in the vault. We take them out. We plug them into the toy. They use the toy. We bring it back. We pull the battery pack and put it back in the vault. And that was really good news. That was a smart move until just a few weeks back when we heard that there was a couple of battery fires within the vault and it burned right through the vault.
Yeah.
So once again, it's a good thing to think containment. It's another good thing to say we can get it over the side, so mount the containment where we can get it over the
Get
side.
it on the side. That's right. Yeah.
But the biggest error that we see are people buying aftermarket chargers, marrying it up with batteries, buying aftermarket batteries. You know, this battery can give you twice the effect, twice the length of time, run time, or this charger is a supercharger. It can charge it in half the time.
Right.
And they marry them up, and that's where
Right.
the fall is.
Well, and the problem was also the cart was in front of the horse from the beginning. You know, all these toys, our cell phones, everything that went to this lithium ion world, and all these products just exploded onto the market, and there was no safety vehicle ahead of it. You
Yeah.
know, so everything was all reactive. So we're seeing innovations come out. There are some companies that we that we work with very closely, you know, that help us with our extinguishers on the fire field and things like that. So they're coming out with innovations in extinguishing agents. The problem is most of these products you have to buy overseas, so it's extremely expensive. So they're coming over here in small quantities. I think last time I talked to one of the gentlemen, he said they only make, you know, you can only, the largest extinguishing delivery system is like 50 gallons of this stuff. Right? So imagine, you know, an engine room, or like you said, an entire vessel where these batteries line the keel and the hull.
Yeah.
There's no flood system like a high fog or a CO2 system of these agents. I think we're years away from getting that type of technology on board the vessels.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at. We're caught in this, we've got this market full of these batteries and these toys with these batteries, and is exactly what Chauncey said, there's really only one method, and that's, you know, that's...
Right. So this is where I think collaboration between industries such as Resolve and in your real-world experiences, the technology that's being delivered, and then naval architects, yacht designers who are developing these new vessels and these new propulsion technologies. Hydrogen power is on the table right now. That's coming out. You know, it's an interesting fuel source for sure. Used to be used a whole lot in the last century.
That's right.
But comes with its own unique set of problems and storage and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, and this connects back to the Resolve Academy, because the people that you're training here are going to end up on these boats, and they're going to end up in the circumstances where they're going to see the potential results of these technologies, good, bad, and otherwise. How does what you guys do differ from other academies, other training agencies? I have to assume there's grades of difference, just like there are in every other industry.
We are, if you're familiar with how the courses go, there's two governing entities that govern the curriculum standards for the courses that we teach, the U.S. Coast Guard and the MCA.
Yes.
So we have to teach to the curriculum. We have to teach to the curriculum standards. Now we can add on to it. Can't subtract anything from their curriculum standards. We can add on to it. And what we've done, and you can jump in here as well, Chauncey, what we've done is added as much as we can. We're still maintaining contact hours about lithium ion. We have PowerPoint slides that we talk about lithium ion. We talk about it in the field. We have videos that we show. And then partnering with some of the people that we partner with to operationally run our school, we can show different extinguishing agents that I talked about earlier with those companies at the boat shows and things like that. So
Gotcha.
That's one way we can do it. And then I don't know if you can
and
that.
just like you said, we can add. So we do add, because the Coast Guard hasn't caught up to that yet, MCA either, because it's new. Right. So, and you can imagine how long it takes things to get into the system where curriculums change. So we take the opportunity to kind of fill in and bring in, just like I said before, the latest, greatest stuff, because it's available to us. And so even down to, we talk about our fire simulator. It is ship-like. A lot of people think that we floated that thing in there.
See that.
Yeah, the only thing that we can't do is upset the stability of that vessel.
We try.
But she's steady. But the point being is that it's a real environment that the students get to practice in and they get to see. And once again, we're not just U.S. Coast Guard and MCA. We're NFPA, where we follow a bunch of different standards for a bunch of different categories of fire training and safety training. The fire departments don't just come to us and train in the fire simulator. They come and they train in the damage control simulator.
I was just going to ask you about that, Chauncey, because I remember when I walked through that facility and I saw the damage control infrastructure, and you were showing me levels where the water comes up.
That's right.
And it's like, okay, that's real. When you're in a confined space and the water's blowing at you at whatever the PSI pressure is, coming 30, 40 PSI, and it's coming in fast and furious and cold, and you see the water coming up, back of your mind, there's a hatch to get out of there, but at the end of the day, it's still real enough. And do other schools do that? Do you get that experience where you're in that confined space and you've got these set of tools and you've got to figure out how to shut that down, plug that gap, make that stop?
I personally don't know of any other schools in the U.S. that provide it. We are also approved by TEEX, which is the Texas Engineering Extension Service from Texas A&M University.
Right.
So we've been recognized by them. We can provide courses that are under their domain, as well as they endorse our courses, our custom courses. And one of the programs that we pitched to them was damage control, because land-based firefighters know very little about damage control.
Of course.
And what we found is that beyond the damage, the actual plugging and diking and damming stuff that we do, and the different specialty tools and equipment, and some of it is not so special. It's just common stuff. But what we found is in that simulator, just like you said, when the water gets up around your belt level, you get hyper-focused and you start to really gel as a team. And we actually promote it as a team-building exercise for anyone. If you've got an office staff and you want to bring them in for a day of team building.
Oh, I love that.
You can't beat it for
I
team
love
building
that.
because at first it's a bunch of individuals,
Yeah.
and then they realize we can't do this by ourselves,
That's right.
and
They coalesce.
yeah, because otherwise they feel like they're going to drown.
In the real world, that's exactly what happens. So,
And that's right. It really becomes true. So one of the proofs of that, and Will should speak to it actually before me, but we host a damage control Olympics when Fleet Week's in town,
Oh, wow.
where we have Navy vessels competing against Coast Guard vessels, competing against even Navy submarines. And the last round we did, out of the five teams,
4 or 5 teams.
it's all timed events. So it's
So tell me the submariners come through in the clinch, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
the submariners did come through, and what was
did.
interesting, because obviously damage control is really a serious issue with those guys, and they have limited crew and limited space.
Yeah.
But the point being is that when they walked out of that simulator, their commander was with them, and their commander had told, I believe you, Lana,
Yeah.
prior to going in, and I'll let you tell Rick what the commander
he just
said.
mentioned, he said they're going to have a tough time with this one. So just seeing the simulator, before it was even underway, he was watching another team go through.
Yes.
And that was his comment going out saying, oh, my team's going to have a time with this.
And the crew that came out said that is more technical and more of a tactical simulator than we use in the Navy.
Wow.
So that was
What
impressed
we
by
did
that.
with them is, so we were running them through these flooding drills, and we had a measurement stick, so that as that water came up, they had to stop the amount of water, as much water as they could in that time frame, and we would measure that where the water was on the wall. So it was really kind of cool.
That is, that's in the team building thing. I mean, you could almost set up a whole program there to bring in local businesses.
I really,
yeah.
I express to everyone that I can that bring your staff, and we've had a couple of
Yeah, I wanted
companies
to
bring people in.
piggyback on that because, as you know, the yachting landscape, where they're going has changed, right? They don't just do the Caribbean Med and Hamptons anymore. A lot of these yacht owners, they are getting these boats to do some really exploratory things with their crews.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the boats that we had that brought their crews here, not just for the team building, although they had a wonderful time. This was a very large yacht. But the boss they were going around the world, and they were going to visit polar regions. They were going to be in very, very interesting and unique areas. And they were adamant about getting the crews trained up in these types of training techniques, so that way, if they're out in the middle of nowhere, they know that they're in a polar region, and it's going to probably be days before help gets out there, or even longer.
Yeah.
That my crew has to be able to be confident and comfortable in plugging, patching, synth-wrap, shoring, all these damage control disciplines, but do so when they're wet, when they're cold, when they're nervous, with a lot of noise going on.
High stress.
High stress.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's,
Dexterity goes away quick.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
dexterity goes, so they have to
Cold.
make sure they're
Hypothermia
secure in
is
power.
insidious.
There's all these different, attention to detail things. And they came out of it with not only just, they really blended as a crew, because you had the stew working with the engineer, working with a decky, working with the captain, so you got everybody working together. But these concepts are just, and I struggle to say this, these concepts are not as prevalent in the yachting industry because damage control is not as prevalent in the yachting industry.
No,
It's not required.
It's not
It's not
required.
required.
It's a different world
Right.
usually. But these boats are
But they
getting
love
so
it.
much bigger,
Oh,
and
that's
they are
right.
going so many different places.
That's
and,
right.
And when when you're building a program around a 70, 80, 90, 120 meter, 150 meter yacht,
That's right.
you're into ships.
That's
and,
it.
And now
Yeah,
that's
it's not
where
a
you've
boat.
got that crossover of vessel crew training, where your ship training, your commercial training starts becoming way more
Mm-hmm.
applicable and suitable for what you're doing here for these crews. So that
How
makes
many
sense.
vessels in those sizes do we lose every year because they bumped into a reef or had a small collision and they had no concept of how to stop that water
Yeah,
from
that
intruding
progressive flooding.
in flooding compartments?
Right.
And to your point, Rick, how many times have you been sitting around with a bunch of captain friends of yours, and you've heard the statement, well, if it catches on fire, I'm just getting the crew off the boat.
Yeah.
If it starts flooding, I'm just getting the crew off the boat. When you're talking about a 600-foot vessel, 400-foot vessel,
That's not an option.
it's not an option, but first and foremost is you have the ability to fight this.
That's right.
You have the ability to set your primary and secondary boundaries. You have the ability to have the proper shoring equipment and structurally reinforce the bulkheads surrounding that incident. You have the ability to set up 1 and 2 different damage control or fire teams.
Yeah.
So the mentality of, if it starts taking on water,
those
fire,
are all built to class. They all got watertight,
100%. So
boundaries in them.
you
Yep.
should be required to know these disciplines.
Right. Well, I guess that answered my question about what makes this school a little bit different from so many other schools, which is cool.
Yeah.
I also noticed right out here you've got a pool.
Yep.
I was reading something recently. Coast Guard was talking about this, how in training, they require that the students actually perform the action of turning the life raft
That's
over
right.
and boarding that life raft individually, not as a team, not as a group, whatever.
right.
And having that ability to train that right here, under supervision, I think that's a huge advantage. I think that's a great asset here.
It's probably my favorite part of pool day. That's the one practical of all of them. Getting in immersion suits, crossing cover, the turning over the life raft, because you got these students, and a lot of them are pretty young or they're very new to the maritime industry, and that pushes them past their comfort zone. When you got the life raft coming over and you have to get yourself out from underneath it. And so I have more students that have a sense of accomplishment after that task.
There you go.
Than most of the others. So I love that one. So
Absolutely.
I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, well, I just want to plug on that pool. It is an indoor pool too. South Florida, we can't depend on our weather and whatnot. So it's one more thing of helping us out as well as a training academy.
Yeah, lightning storm.
I was going to say, no lightning.
We're not
right?
having to reschedule in terms of that because that is a real thing, especially during the summertime.
Wow.
So, yeah.
One thing I'd like to add that Will covered earlier, the vessel that came through here that was going on expeditions and they came here for specialized training, that was driven by their insurance company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Their insurance
Good
carrier actually told them they had to go seek training, cold weather training, specialized training, damage control training, before they would cover them to go to the Antarctic. They were carrying a National Geographic crew. So it was really important that they make that trip. So it was something beyond compliance. It was something above and beyond what they had to have in normal everyday business. But because their insurance carrier recognized that they're really going to be exposed out there.
Yeah.
And we're covering them.
And
They drove that.
And these underwriters recognize your school, your curriculum, and recognize.
Well, we're the best kept secret in town.
Well, we're going to fix that. We're changing that.
And that we hope that's true because we do offer the very best training, the most comprehensive training, valid training.
No
We're
question.
certainly equipped to do the things that we do.
To walk through this facility, that becomes obvious. And it's interesting you mentioned that. I'm sitting with Laura Sherrod in a couple of weeks. She's with New Coast. And insurance underwriting has so much effect on our industries and what you can and can't do and what's required and what's going to happen or not happen because of the policies and the program and the procedures and everything. So I think I'm going to try to maybe weave a little bit of this conversation in with her to get a perspective from her view, which would be interesting.
It just seems like there's a lot of opportunities there, on the insurance
the
front
training
of
can make a
protecting,
difference,
and it really,
Yeah. So Lana, this is your baby, as I understand it, and it's in a growth mode. What's in the future? Do you have thoughts about how you're gonna expand your services, your programs, your classes? Will you ever get back to like virtual helm training, things like that? What's your thinking here?
Yeah, so we're really looking to really help the, career mariner develop right into those skill sets. So identifying that track, that path, and really moving into that. So right now we actually moved into this facility to offer that full STCW course, that survival action in the pool. We're looking to continue to expand on the development. We saw that as the foundational stepping stone into the industry. We'll be offering some of the hosting courses, more or less, so kind of the Silver Sea, I believe, starting August.
Nice.
So we're really
Right around the
excited
corner.
to start, really starting to tiptoe into some of that. We're actually going through some, I mentioned earlier, we did come from a much larger capacity of a school. We had bridge and engine room and ECTA simulators. So we're actually kind of looking into what we have and really kind of seeing if we can start some of those options back up as well. So
That would be nice.
We're really excited. Again, the team, I think we've just got the right people in place. So again, what we're really trying to do is help the mariner succeed. And so what those mariners are in need of, what the yachties are in need of, that's what we're really all ears for.
Well, you just gave me a wonderful segue, because when I sat with your dad, we were, and I talk about doing well for others in all of my podcasts, I think, and your dad epitomizes the concept of doing well for others. You know, he's a remarkable man. I feel truly blessed to have the opportunity to become a friend with him, and that's rare, I think, in this world.
I agree.
So I was also recently at the Seafarers House, and we're going to do something to try to give them a leg up and support that organization. What is your thoughts? Resolve has got such a footprint in the maritime industry. How do you tie in Mission Resolve with the rest of the program and see things, these initiatives like Seafarers House, which, if you don't understand what that program's all about, well, all you have to do is be a seafarer, be a mariner, go off to sea for 6 months, a year at a time, and understand the value of a facility like that.
Absolutely.
You want to give us just a little insight into, how that fits into your world?
On the Academy standpoint?
Yeah,
then?
sure.
Yeah, so we do a lot of more local events and more things, and Will really fronts a good amount of those items. As an organization, we really are kind of right now, especially in this growth period, what can we do, be it junior achievers and things like that, kind of identifying opportunities outside of, again, the day-to-day training. So at this point, I think we're really starting to grow further into it, because right now it's been a little bit more on the one-off initiatives on the Academy side, a lot more in terms of the younger communities and children and some of those guys and girls throughout. And Will can talk to some of those initiatives, but like we're saying, I think there's a lot of opportunity now that we've really expanded. We've got Will's S2S programs. Right. That'll be really something special if you want to go.
Sure. Well, I'll quickly, just the community outreach. So in the last year, I've spoken in front of everything from affluent Boy Scouts, Sea Scouts, really close teams that are in the maritime, that have that drive to get into the maritime industry, all the way to the juvenile detention center.
Bravo.
And everything in between. And the message is you've got this maritime industry in your backyard, and the world is your oyster, so to speak. There's there's jobs for everybody. There was a gentleman, and I love telling this story too. There was a gentleman I talked to, and this was last year when I talked to the juvenile detention center. He had some minor issues early on, and wound up where he wound up, but had completed an associate's degree while he was, incarcerated. And, I won't get into the whole story, or it would take another whole podcast. But he got hired on with one of the support companies, diesel exhaust companies, and is thriving, is now looking to get on one of the ships to actually start getting underway. So he's really turned his life around in our industry. So that was really cool.
Do you mind me asking which diesel exhaust company he worked with?
I wanted to say D'Angelo, but it wasn't D'Angelo. It was one of the other ones. I'll have to find out.
I just asked that because I know that D'Angelo's actually had recent outreach with this, and I have been really impressed with what they've been doing as far as bringing young people.
Maybe it was D'Angelo. Yeah. I know it was one of the engineering.
Yeah, I know Captain Herb was really involved in trying to make things like that happen.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the Service to Sea program. So we're really excited about this. This hopefully will get off the ground here soon. We've got a few priorities that we want to get shored up first. But this is a veterans transitional program.
Love it.
It's a men and women that either are retiring or they're getting out after their time in service. And when I did it, I did 21 years in the U.S. Coast Guard.
Thank you.
And transitioned into the maritime industry, and that transition process was a pain. I mean, you would think coming from U.S. Coast Guard onto a ship
all the boxes,
to get,
right?
and to get U.S. Coast Guard merchant mariner licenses, my stuff wouldn't translate. They couldn't find, it was a nightmare.
Wow.
And I vowed to start something, and thank God I've got the support network here at Resolve with Chauncey and Lana to be able to take this and drive with it when we get it started. And it's just going to be an easy transition where we're going to have counselors. We're going to work with a company that's an online-based company that will take all of their certificates and license, that company that you and I talked to on the phone, that'll take all their license and paperwork and then translate it for the U.S. Coast Guard and basically spit them out their Merchant Mariner credential. So they can do training with us, and we'll block training as their STCW, so on and so forth. And then they go to this council that's going to take all the, so it's a plug and play. They're just going to come into our school and have everything basically done for them, and they're out the door with a license and on a boat. So that's really what it's all about, is just helping our veterans find an easy transition to the industry.
So, Will, I think basically that you help sum the whole thing up here. You guys are the real deal. You've put together a program, Resolve Academy, that's based on the real world experience that goes back decades. And you take all of that and essentially wrap it into a program that people can plug into and create a career path that's tangible, that you can actually expect to find success.
That's right.
And come back again and keep it going. And I applaud you guys. I think this is cool. I've been in the space a long time. I've seen other training programs around. There's a couple others that are pretty good in town. I've not seen anything that comes close to what you guys have put together here. And I hope people that are listening to this podcast find a path that brings them through South Florida, will be willing to come by and take a look, stop in, say hello, meet you guys. This is a welcoming place, and the facility's amazing, the program's amazing, the people are amazing. Check it out. I think Resolve Academy has got one trajectory, and that's going in a good direction.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
No, I really do. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to have this conversation and get this out, and looking forward to our next conversation, because we're going to talk to you and Joe again about Resolve Marine in the near future and talk about salvage and some of the things that you guys have done. And I swear I'm going to get that bamboo story on the record here too. But again, until that happens, thanks very much, Lana. Thank you so much for facilitating this. And Chauncey, like always, it's
pleasure,
great to
Rick.
catch up and have this conversation. Will, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for listening in and being part of Yachting International Radio's Yachting USA. This is Rick Thomas, and until next time, I'm out of here.